Hi, this is New Time on Silkway TV channel. We introduce you with the most visible news and important events that happened throughout this week in Kazakhstan and Central Asia. More details on politics, economy, social and cultural life with opinions from the most recognizable experts of Kazakhstan and world. I'm Dauriana Sagulov. And let's begin our program today with the main economic agenda. The President of Kazakhstan met with the captains of the Kazakh economy, top 50 businessmen of the country. The meeting has become a continuation of recent discussions at the government, where President Tokayev instructed Cabinet of Ministers to foster economic growth in the country. Now the dialogue with the businessmen and investors who are implementing the largest projects in the private sector has been successfully taken place. My colleague Ainur Mangalia has covered the event with her Reporter with President project. Let's have a look.
The year 2025 starts actively and straight to the point, followed by the extended meeting at the government's now business forum with the participation of the leading businessmen of the country and also the head of state, who will, by the way, sit here right in the middle of this round table, will contribute to an idea, to a concept of fostering economic growth, something that President Tokayev instructed the government to implement in the near future. In this room are the businessmen who contribute into the Kazakh economy billions of dollars. The expectations from the meeting are high. President Tokayev has arrived at the meeting. Businessmen proceed with delivering their speeches. The most common message is to differentiate VAT rate for businesses.
The issue that causes concern in the industry is the planned introduction of VAT on medicines, medical products and medical services, as well as the introduction of the CIT rate in medical organizations. This will lead to an increase in prices for medicines and medical services and will hit the budget of citizens, especially the socially vulnerable, and reduce their access to medicines and medical services.
The president has an answer.
The VAT rate should be differentiated. The government should decide on its upper limit based on precise calculations, taking into account the opinions of qualified experts, entrepreneurs, and, of course, deputies. Any innovations should be carried out based on comprehensive analysis and a well-thought-out strategy. Different options that take into account the specifics of economic sectors must be devised.
И сегодня также глава государства озвучил о ставке по налогам, да, что она должна быть тоже дифференцирована, как может воспринять и отреагировать рынок на это сообщение.
Мне кажется, там нужно, во-первых, очень большое...
We need to pay great attention to socially significant goods. For food products, perhaps VAT should be reduced from the current level or even zeroed out. Differentiated rates should also be created, which will be paid equally by all market participants, so that VAT does not turn into a turnover or sales tax. We have time to make the process a little smoother. This year we plan to introduce irrigation for 10,000 hectares at our enterprise, where the yield is 5 higher compared to Bulgaric areas. This initiative includes the construction of commercial market milk dairy farms and a poultry farm. In addition to investments, we aim to secure borrowed funds for these projects. Our proposal is financing at 5% in the long term.
In a time of new concepts, approaches and trends, Kazakh economy should adapt and businesses to focus not only on projects in traditional attractive sectors, but to produce really innovative ideas.
Given the
current geopolitical realities and global trade conditions, tremendous opportunities are hidden in the transport and logistics sector. The demand for rail, road and air transportation is only growing. Another promising industry is tourism. Foreigners are particularly interested in Kazakhstan's pristine nature and the traditions and historical heritage of our people.
Overall, the meeting, as participants noted, sends a signal for the business community of the country, very positive signal that the government and the business should trust each other and work collaboratively for the economic prosperity of Kazakhstan. This message was very strong and supported by all. That's it for today. See you next time.
This week, President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev met with Madina Abulkasimova, chair of the Agency of the Republic of Kazakhstan for Regulation and Development of the Financial Market, to review the 2024 financial market results. According to her report, bank assets grew by nearly 20%, while lending to the economy saw a similar increase, with business loans rising by more than 16%. Banks have also repaid $780 million in state support ahead of schedule. To boost competition, foreign banks from South Korea, Qatar, and the UAE have entered the market. Additionally, in line with the president's directive, $410 million in debt has been restructured or forgiven to ease the financial burden on citizens. Following the meeting, President Tokayev tasked the agency with further strengthening the financial sector. Kazakhstan's Ministry of Transport has published a preliminary report on the crash of Azerbaijan Airlines aircraft in Aktau. According to the findings, the plane's hydraulic system was damaged before impact with the ground, luckily due to external objects that penetrated the aircraft. The report states that investigators discovered numerous perforating and non-penetrating damages on the fuselage, tail section and rear part of the aircraft, including stabilizers. Additional forensic examinations will be conducted to determine the source of these foreign objects. A partial transcript of cockpit communications confirms that the Azerbaijani crew was not denied landing at nearby Russian airfields, contradicting speculations following the crash. However, the reason they opted for Aktau remains unclear. The report emphasizes that the investigation is not intended to determine culpability or assign responsibility. The Azerbaijan Airlines plane crashed on December 25th last year with 62 passengers and 5 crew members on board. 38 people lost their lives. Kazakhstan has reaffirmed its commitment to the OPEC+ agreement, announcing it will take the necessary steps in 2 years to come to meet its obligations and make up for overproduction in 2024. This statement came on February 3rd during the 58th meeting of the Joint Ministerial Monitoring Committee of OPEC+ wider group. Despite increased production this year, driven by the expansion of the Tengiz field, the Ministry of Energy stated that fulfilling its OPEC+ commitments remains a top priority. So, how exactly will the country balance these commitments? And with the US President Donald Trump's new energy policy on the horizon, what impact might that have on country's strategy moving forward? Balzhan Samigulina has more from experts on this development story.
The Caspian Pipeline Consortium, Kazakhstan's primary oil pipeline, is tightening its grip on the nation's energy exports. Today, it transports a staggering 80% of Kazakhstan's oil. Just a decade ago, that figure was at the 40%, and the volume of oil flowing through CPC has more than doubled, skyrocketing from 29 million tons to 55. Analysts point this jump to a sharp decline in alternative export routes, leaving CPC to dominate. But as expert Askar Ismailov pointed out, there is no quick fix. To navigate this, he suggested that in today's world, the priority should have been clear: maintain oil production at full capacity.
I think it would be more beneficial for us keep as much as possible. We understand that OPEC+ obligations are, and Ministry of Energy, they set their commitments to keep this reduction. But in terms of situation in Kazakh economy, I think it's better to keep as much as possible oil production. And this, of course, will help to keep our refinery plants and oil products.
The Caspian Pipeline Consortium is crucial for Kazakhstan's oil exports. Last year, 63 million tons of oil passed through its terminal, with 54.8 million tons coming from Kazakhstan. The key suppliers are Tengiz, Kashagan and Karachaganak. However, experts warn that CPS vulnerability lies in its political dependencies and limited diversification. So how secure is Caspian Pipeline Consortium's infrastructure, and how can the country reduce the risk?
Experts say by developing alternative export routes, including through China and the Trans-Caspian international route. Notably, recently Kazakhstan launched a new export route shipping oil from Kazakh to Baku on the tanker Taras. From there, the oil flew through Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline to the Mediterranean, with plans to increase shipments to 2.2 million tons annually.
The plans for 2025 are remaining unchanged. The same as for 2024. We are planning to move around 1.5 million tons per annum, and according to the shipment, the sellers will decide whether they will expand this export route and the volumes according to the commercial negotiations.
As industry leaders turn their attention to the U.S. energy outlook this year, all eyes have been on President Donald Trump's promise of a drill baby drill policy. In stark contrast to the climate-focused Biden administration, Trump's team is set to deliver on the fossil fuel industry's wish list, ramping up oil production and boosting demand for its products.
They are prepared to roll back regulations that favor electric vehicles and fuel-efficient hybrids, while greenlighting Gulf Coast project to liquefy and export natural gas. New Times spoke with former OPEC analyst George Leon to break down what's ahead for U.S. energy and what it could mean for the global economy and geopolitics.
Now, in reality, we don't think that this is going to have a significant impact in domestic U.S. production, because essentially there are different there are concerns about capital discipline in the shale sector in particular, and there's also depletion of inventories in the most prolific basins. We don't think that that is going to have a significant impact in the short term. It might have a more of a material impact in the medium term, but for 2025, the impact is likely to be extremely limited.
George Leon said the biggest challenge for oil producers this year is oversupply in the market. While demand is expected to grow by 1 to 1.2 million barrels per day, non-OPEC countries like the US, Canada and Brazil are ramping up production, flooding the market too. So OPEC Plus producers are caught in the middle, and analysts predict oil prices to stay between $75 to $80 per barrel, which isn't great news for producers.
The question then becomes, what can these oil-producing nations do? Leon suggested that the best move would be to curb production in an effort to stabilize prices, especially in the light of uncertainty coming from the geopolitical aspects, where key questions include the U.S. stance on Iran, potential changes in Tehran's crude exports, the impact of conflicts on Russian oil flows, and what's next for Venezuela. With so many moving parts, OPEC Plus producers will need to stay alert and ready to react quickly to shifting market conditions. Baljan Samigulina, New Time.
A high meeting took place in Astana to mark the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and 25th anniversary of the UN Security Council resolution Women, Peace, Security. These main international documents focused on advancing women's rights and promoting gender equality. The event brought together government leaders from Central Asian countries and representatives from UN Women. According to Orzigul Kojikonova, chairperson of the Committee on Youth, Women, Culture and Sports in the Senate of Uli Majlis of Uzbekistan, such gatherings are crucial for exchanging ideas, experiencing on women's rights that have a far-reaching impact across Central Asia.
Uzbekistan has made progress in increasing women's participation in society, ensuring gender equality and improving family relations. Over the past 7 years, over 100 legal documents were adopted, including 7 laws, 30 presidential decrees and 57 cabinet resolutions. A national commission and local commissions have been established to monitor and support women's involvement in public life. Additionally, following the 2024 elections, the share of women in parliament increased, reaching 38% in the legislative chamber and 27% in the Senate.
Central Asian countries are making efforts toward achieving the goals outlined in the Beijing Declaration. legislative action plans are being actively implemented and refined. In Tajikistan, for instance, Nigina Alizoda, first Deputy Minister of Justice, highlighted the passage of a law focused on equality and the fight against discrimination toward women. She emphasized that this law forms part of the country's national strategy to strengthen the role of women alongside a comprehensive national program.
Tajikistan is currently working on a draft of a new criminal code, which includes a specific article on domestic violence. I think that all countries in the Central Asian region are making great efforts to ensure the rightful position of women in society and to achieve gender equality in governance. The draft of this criminal code is currently under government review and will be presented to the parliament of our country.
A law adopted in Kazakhstan last year on domestic violence has equipped institutions with better tools and knowledge to address violence prevention and raised awareness among citizens, particularly women and girls, about their rights. This insight came in an exclusive interview with New Time reporter Baljan Samigulina, where Belen Sans-Luc, regional director for UN Women Europe and Central Asia, emphasized the importance of this progress. According to her, women in Central Asia spend threefold time on caregiving than men, limiting their ability to enter the workforce and pursue their career goals. As the world strives for gender equality, Ms. Luke also noted that it could take up to 300 years and urged our region to accelerate efforts. But what exactly can we do to speed up this process? Watch the interview with Ms. Luke in our Interview of the Week segment to know the ways.
Ms. Luka, thank you very much for joining us. It's a great pleasure to have you in our country.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be in Astana these days and to really get engaged with Kazakhstan and the work that is being done on gender equality.
This week we have discussed the goals that we have achieved to the Beijing Declaration and Sustainable Development Goal number 5. How close do you think we have come by now to achieve these goals, and what are the next steps that is going to be implemented by UN Women?
So the women in education and girls' access to education has been a major progress in humanity and also in this region. More women are part of the parliaments and decision-making processes. More women are part of the economy and are driving force in economic development in countries. And there are more and more countries that have developed legislation on violence against women to prevent it and to eradicate it.
Like Kazakhstan last year in April.
Exactly. Kazakhstan passed a groundbreaking law. This is a very important law in order to recognize domestic violence, but also to make specific mechanisms for institutions to respond to this violence. This is a very, very important progress. And so progress is in the right track, but it's very slow, it's uneven, and if you go to different countries and different territories within countries, then you see that we are very much far behind what we should be. In that sense, we are close to 300 years we would take as a humanity in order to have women in equality across the different sectors. This means that even my granddaughters wouldn't see full equality. So in order to accelerate change, what do we need to do? We need to ensure that women can be free of violence in the public life and in the private life. And that if we see that any women may be experiencing any form of violence, that they are directed to the institutions so that violence can be eradicated. We need to ensure that more women can access the decision making. That women who want to be politicians, they can have a free space to do it, that they don't have fear of any violence in the public sphere, and that they are treated as men with respect and with dignity. We also need to ensure that women can access the economy, and for that there is something very important, which is the care work that women undertake. So in this region, women dedicate three times more than men to the care work. So the Central Asian countries are countries where this gender gap is very, very big, because men dedicate much less time during the week to the care work than women. Is this a problem? Well, it's a problem when this results in women not having time for accessing the labor market, for developing their own career aspirations, and they have what we call in UN Women poverty of time, because women work In the public sector, women work at home, and therefore the number of hours that women work every week is so tiring that women don't have their own time. And that's something we need to change, and we need to redistribute the care work. So these are critical accelerators. All of that requires that the Beijing Platform for Action that we call in the United Nations is fully implemented, that the governments allocate budget and financing so that these policies can become a reality for women in the different parts of society.
And Kazakhstan now still comprises 48%, basically literally half of economically active population among women. It takes first place in Central Asian region, but still in global ranking it's 65th place in global inequality. Exactly. So what programs exactly that you have in common with Kazakh authorities and other Central Asian authorities to implement by this year that you can announce right now?
Well, one aspect that we have seen Kazakhstan engaging with, because indeed we need to understand what factors can enable more women to enter the economy with the right conditions of being in the economy. One is the gender equality strategy that Kazakhstan built that integrated women's economic empowerment as a key driving force, and integrating also the ratification of the convention. It's called the 190 Convention, ILO, which is about safety of women in the workplace, so that women cannot be harassed, women can feel free of any fear in the workplace. Secondly, we've been working with Kazakhstan entrepreneurs and private sector to be very key drivers on what we call the Expo initiative. This Expo initiative is intended to support women entrepreneurs so that they can develop their businesses, they can share their products, and they can enter into the economy and the cycle of the economy. So this is a very important program because we need to ensure that those women who have economic initiatives can be supported. And so we have been able to see that Kazakhstan is a key leader on this, together with implementing principles and commitments with the private sector that they will transform their own institutions and organizations to include more women and to address the needs of women in the private sector. So these are some examples that we are addressing with Kazakhstan. We think that more and more women in Kazakh can really make a difference in the economy, and therefore we need to support them from the government side but also from the private sector.
And also we have mentioned this law that have been adopted in Kazakhstan in last April on domestic violence. What has UN Women witnessed within this year since this law has been adopted? Were there any changes, like what trend have you witnessed so far?
Well, I think that one aspect that we need to consider about this law is that it contributes to advance the legal framework that Kazakhstan needs for the protection of women and girls. So through this law, what we've been able to see is that institutions have better equipment and knowledge about how to address the prevention of violence against women. Also that citizenship is more aware, and especially women and girls, about their rights so that they can be protected through the law. And that at the local level there is more possibility of giving access to services for any women who have been victims of violence. It is still early to evaluate the results of the law, but what is very important is that the law undertakes a very thorough monitoring of its implementation, and that the financing for the law is really a critical aspect so that we can see a very clear result of this legislation that needs to be accompanied with work with civil society, with work with the survivors of violence, and really ensure that the law is not only a framework that is in the law, but it's actually a possibility of transforming women's lives.
Thank you very much again, Ms. Luka, for dedicating your time to our program.
Thank you to you. Thank you.
And let's move on. Can Kazakhstan escape the middle income trap and ensure both economic growth and public prosperity? World Bank economists discussed this issue while presenting their report, The Middle Income Trap, this week in Astana. According to the report, Kazakhstan's economy is expected to experience temporary growth acceleration in 2025, driven by a one-time increase in oil production and fiscal stimulus measures. However, after 2025, growth rates may slow due to low productivity and declining investment levels. The report's authors stress the need for economic diversification and support for new growth drivers to sustain long-term development. More details in our next report. The World Bank forecasts Kazakhstan GDP growth at 4.7% in 2025, far from a reason to celebrate. This falls short of the government's expectations of 5.6% and President Tokayev's target of 6-7%. These figures are symptoms of what some economists call the middle income trap. According to the World Bank, 108 countries worldwide face significant barriers preventing them from overcoming this challenge. Among them are China, India, Turkey, Russia and Kazakhstan.
When countries grow from low income to middle income and to high income, at some point it becomes more difficult to grow. And it's more difficult to grow when you are deep into middle income territory, because you need to have much more sophisticated institutions, much more sophisticated policies. You rely much more on human talent, on a vibrant business environment. So it's becoming more difficult as you grow, right? As you grow, and that's what the trap is.
According to the World Bank chief economist Ivailo Izvorsky, the key differences between middle and high-income countries are not in the quantity of resources they possess, but in how efficiently they use them. The World Bank report highlights three fundamental drivers of economic growth: businesses, skilled labor and social mobility, and energy.
By giving the private sector more initiative, allowing for a much more vibrant private sector, allowing for more domestic competition, a level playing field between public and private enterprises, allowing human talent to flourish so that it's not wasted and it's used productively. I think this is what would generate new growth and jobs. It's not possible, and probably it's not even helpful, to try to identify which sectors, the economy would grow. Because human initiative, if you give it opportunities, always finds something to do. Now, I mean, look at various countries around the world, from Korea that has absolutely no natural resources, to Poland that has very few natural resources, to Chile that has also natural resources. All of them have grown to high income, through human ingenuity, through openness to foreign ideas and investment. And so Kazakhstan is going to be able to do the same thing.
Economic freedom is a key driver of innovation, investment and growth, yet competition in Central Asia has weakened since 2006, according to the World Bank. Ivailo Izvorsky warns that excessive state involvement in the economy is limiting opportunities for small and medium-sized businesses, hindering innovation and slowing overall economic progress. A major concern is the dominance of state-owned enterprises, a legacy of planned economies which continues to obstruct private sector development and technological advancement. This is particularly evident in the energy sector, where reliance on outdated state-run infrastructure and substantial fossil fuel subsidies, equivalent to 5% of the region's GDP, is undermining efficiency and delaying the transition to green energy.
But I think, indeed, the Kazakhstan is a critical point, how to ensure that this trap is overcome and Kazakhstan become a high-income country. To do that, Kazakhstan cannot rely only on the extensive use of natural resources. It's a blessing, of course, and Kazakhstan grown rapidly in the beginning of 2000. But now, as today, as our World Development Report saying, there needs much more, not only investment, but also infusion of new technologies, on new innovation. That's where many countries actually overcame this trap and became a high-income country.
In their concluding remarks, World Bank economists outlined a series of measures to improve economic conditions. Key recommendations included energy sector reforms, phasing out fossil fuel subsidies and transitioning to market-based energy pricing. The report also emphasized the need to enhance education standards and promote fair competition by ensuring equal opportunities for businesses. Additionally, the authors stressed the importance of fostering social mobility, creating more opportunities for economic advancement. Daurian Sagulov, Nurbulat Askerbekov, New Time. The future of USAID, the world's largest humanitarian aid donor, is now uncertain. Under an executive order from President Trump, started from February 8th, all agency staff have been placed on mandatory administrative leave, freezing nearly all aid programs worldwide. USAID has been active in Kazakhstan since 1992, providing more than $500 million in funding to support economic development, healthcare and democratic institutions. One of its beneficiaries, the Legal Media Center, offers legal training, webinars and consultation for journalists. Its director, Diana Kremova, noted that while USAID funding made up no more than 15% of the organization's budget, its suspension would inevitably make their work more challenging.
This was a specific project aimed at countering disinformation, and our role focused on the specialized aspects, training journalists on how to work with information sources, avoid fake news and navigate legal frameworks. We taught them how to correctly apply legislation, ensuring they do not fall victim to criminal or administrative charges under our legal system.
In 2023, USAID spent approximately $38.1 billion on its projects, a substantial figure, yet it accounted for just 0.6% of total US government expenditures. Despite this relatively small share, the organization faced criticism from the Trump administration, which moved to significantly cut foreign aid spending. At a recent press briefing, the White House press secretary labeled the $4.5 million allocated to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan as an example of wasteful spending. However, despite such criticism, human rights advocates argue that a significant portion of international aid supports essential initiatives, particularly in the healthcare sector. And finally, a quite surprising high-tech news from our country. Air taxis may appear in Kazakhstan as early as 2026, according to the country's government. Currently, the technology of flying unmanned vehicles is being actively developed in South Korea and the US. A Kazakh company now intends to adopt their experience. Silent helicopters with a capacity of up to 5 passengers will operate on a hydrogen-based system. These transport vehicles will run along with the route from Almaty to the city of Alatau. According to the relevant ministry, the possibility of piloting these technologies in Kazakhstan is currently under consideration. Test sites for the first flights have already been selected. Overall, the implementation of the initiative to develop unmanned transport will bring Kazakhstan several strategic advantages. To support the development of this market in the country, global players will be involved.
Firstly, it is the attraction of international companies and investments. Companies such as Waymo, Tesla, Baidu, Mobileye, Yandex and Huawei are actively looking for countries with flexible regulations for testing unmanned vehicles. The inflow of foreign investments into research infrastructure and the production of components for unmanned cars will contribute to the development of local startups in the field of unmanned technologies. As a result of implementing these initiatives, Kazakhstan will strengthen its status as a regional technology hub.
That's it for today. All the main news about Kazakhstan and Central Asia you can find here. More special projects about our country you can also watch on Silkway TV channel. So stay tuned and see you next week.